Happy Tuesday, everybody. Welcome to another Epic 7 video. This is Victory. Today we're going to be going over some gear and some heroes that you can get early on in the game, regardless of your luck, that are going to help you progress through the early and mid game and get to the late game content where you can start working on your PvP heroes, your PvP gear. So again, we'll start off with the gear here. And the first pieces of gear I want to talk about are the sets of lifesteal gear that you can get in Abyss. And I'm just gonna sort everything by level here so that we can find it a little bit easier. The first ones that you get is the Blood Beasts set. And then a little bit later on in Abyss, you're gonna get this Fire Linquish set of gear. And then finally, and this is not really mid-game gear or early game gear, but you'll get Gavelites. So focusing on Blood Beasts and Fire Linquish sets of gear, you can see that the substats here are really good, right? You're getting speed, which is of course the best stat in the game. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. You're getting attack, you're getting critical hit chance, and you're getting health. So they're really widely applicable. You can put them on just about any hero that does damage, and they're gonna work okay. And you see the same good stats here again on that and on that. So these are available in Abyss. As you clear Abyss, you're going to get these entire sets of gear just by doing that game mode. You can see it switches to effectiveness here on the armor. But what I would highly recommend is whatever your main damage dealer is that you're using in story mode, whoever you're using like there and in your events, and when you're doing your hunts and your spirit altars. For example, for me that was Lorena, and later on Commander Lorena. Put whatever your best couple of pieces of Abyss gear on that hero. Again, for me, that was Lorena, and I use Lorena in every game mode right now because I'm still kind of in the mid game. But if you have someone that you're using to farm adventure and events in particular, you know, you think about how in between battles, you keep some of the damage that you took, right? And eventually you might have to heal that hero up, and that costs gold or time. Having this lifesteal set on your main farming hero allows you to farm without a healer as your support. You know, you can just pick any of your damage dealing friend supports, let them tank in the front spot like we talked about in an earlier video. And your unit is going to stay nice and healed up thanks to this lifesteal set because it's got good stats. It gives you that lifesteal so that you can keep farming without having to spend gold, without having to stop and heal up. So the Abyss sets of gear are really good for that. I'd highly recommend putting them on your main, what you consider your main farming DPS unit. The next sets of gear we're going to talk about come from the Labyrinths. And this is a game mode that if you're new and you can handle the Labyrinths, you know, you're not having trouble in them, I would highly recommend getting Labyrinth keys with leafs early on in the game. And so that you can progress faster in Labyrinth and get these sets of gear faster. The first ones we're going to talk about will be the Uberid set. Let me see if I can find some Uberid's gear here. That's not it. Okay, here's one piece. So Uberid's helm is one piece of it. It's got the attack set. It's got decent substats. I think Uberid has a necklace as well. Yeah, the amulet here, which has fantastic substats and gives you some good critical hit chance. I think there's a ring, no, maybe boots. Yeah, Uberid's boots right here. And I believe there's a couple other pieces as well. I'm just having trouble finding them. But you can see these come from various sets, attack, defense. They all have decent substats though. And you can use, for example, the boots. You see I've got those on Clury. A lot of people use their first Soul Weaver as their tank in PvE. There's nothing wrong with doing that. That actually will help you out a lot because it means, you know, you can dedicate more slots to your fodder that you're leveling. You can dedicate more slots to your damage dealers to get through the content faster if you have a healer and a tank in one spot, right? So maybe that's Angelica for you, maybe it's Aether, it doesn't really matter. You can give them these pieces like these boots here that you get early on from Labyrinth, and it makes them a lot tankier and able to take that damage for your party much better early on in the game so that you don't worry about, you know, do I have enough HP to clear this stage? The Uberid stuff really helps with that. You can also use it on your damage dealers, maybe if you've got one that you're using in Hunt and Altar, but not so much in the main story, since they wouldn't need lifesteal. The difference there is in Hunt and Alter, you don't have to heal in between battles. You just go right back up to full after you finish, regardless of what happened in the fight. You know, so an attack set is better on someone who's going there rather than someone who's going into the side story in the adventure modes. Okay, so Ubrids is good for that. Then the next set you get is the Sacred Hero set. Let's see if I can find that stuff. I think there is a... Well, let's start with the Sword of a Sacred Hero. Again, this is a piece, I believe you get this in the Great Farche, whatever, Labyrinth, which is the second Labyrinth. And the Sacred Hero pieces, some of them have the crit set, which goes very nicely with your lifesteal set, because your lifesteal set is a 4-piece set, crit set is a 2-piece set, so you can put them together and have a really nice set of gear on one person, which 1 or 2 people is all you really need gear on in the early game, and then later on, as you get more heroes that you say, yeah, I want to commit to building this hero, then you need more and more gear as you get more heroes like that. But starting out, really, if you have gear on your main DPS and you got gear on your tank, which would be your healer, in my case that's Angelica, you know, your selective summon may have worked out differently and you have it on a different Soul Weaver, but if you have your health set stuff that comes from Sword of a Sacred Hero, your defense set stuff that comes from the Ubrid set, I think there's a, there we go, Helm of a Sacred Hero is health set as well, and you can see it's got really good substats. So you put your Sacred Hero stuff on your healer, you put your defensive Ubrid stuff on your healer, that's going to be a really good tank for you throughout the entire early and most of the mid game. Same thing with your Abyss gear. If you put your lifesteal set on your main damage dealer, and then you get another lifesteal set, you put that on your second main damage dealer, you've got 2 good DPS. You can throw the crit stuff from the Sacred Hero set, which maybe, hopefully I can find it here, into, there we go, Armor of a Sacred Hero. That one's got the crit set on it. You can throw that into your main DPS people, and they're going to be set for early and mid game, you know. Obviously this stuff, it's got that health stat at the top, that's a flat stat. Flat stats are never as good as percent stats in your sub stats on gear, but for the early and mid game, it's not a problem. You know, it's an epic gear, it's a high level gear, it's going to be better than anything that you can get until you start farming like Wyvern 9 or higher. Okay, so it's going to really help you progress through those early stages, and then it's still going to be at least decent enough to use after you get to where you're farming Wyvern. I mean, you can see I've got it on Alexa, who is a notable free-to-play Wyvern farmer. Okay, so that is your Labyrinth gear. The last pieces of gear we're going to talk about here are not so much a set, but just some pretty decent pieces that you can get near the end of the main story. So like, you know, maybe stages 7 through 10 in the main story, you have those maze levels within the map where if you come back to them, you go through and there's a gold chest or whatever, and it might have sky stones, it might have equipment. The equipment that you get out of those is actually pretty darn good, again, especially for the mid game. I'm going to go over a few of those pieces as well. I believe the first one here is the, here we go, the Dragon Scale Armor, and you can see it's heroic armor. It's level 71, not bad. And then you have health, speed, and critical hit chance, which are all great stats that can go on pretty much anybody. Let's see, you get the Pegasus Boots. I know we're in here. Here we go. The Pegasus Boots, so the main thing about these boots, number one, you can see that all of the substats are percentage substats, which is nice. And they're all things that would go really well on a lot of people. I've got them on Una right now. But the main thing about these boots is that they have speed as their main stat. Boots are the only equipment that can get speed as a main stat. And somebody said, I think it was on Reddit possibly, that there's really no problem in this game that you can't solve simply by getting faster. You know, because speed dictates how fast you gain combat readiness, which dictates how many turns you get compared to your opponents. So the faster you are, the more turns you're taking. So even if your units aren't that great, if you're taking 2 turns to your enemy's 1, those units are going to feel twice as good as they actually are, right? So again, speed is a great stat to have. A lot of people, I would say, myself as well, consider it to be the best stat, and it's good on anybody. Almost anybody, probably 95+% of heroes want as much speed as they can get without sacrificing the other stats. Some heroes need it so much that they're willing to sacrifice other stats to get speed. So Pegasus boots are a really good one because they have a good set, the crit set, they got the speed, they got the good substats. I think there's a helmet as well. For some reason, I am just not finding it. Here it is, Heaven and Earth helm, same kind of thing. You know, it's in the crit set, so it's easy to stick it in to somebody that you've got a set of 4 things on, and then it has decent substats, the defense, the speed, the effectiveness, to kind of help you make a balanced hero. The last pieces of gear we're going to talk about is you do get a free set of epic Terraria equipment, which is actually you can farm Terraria stuff from Golem, but this just kind of hands it to you at the end of the adventure mode, or possibly during the adventure's path. Anyway, you get it pretty much guaranteed as you beat, or right around the time that you beat 10-10 in the normal story mode. And it's epic. It's got good substats. You can see here it's all percentage and speed, and it's the attack set. I have it on Lena because I use Lena in Wyvern and in Spirit Altar quite a bit. And that is the perfect place for someone to have an attack set on because, again, you don't have to heal in between those game modes. So you don't need the lifesteal so much from the Abyss sets of gear. Okay, so that's gear. Just really briefly going to go through some heroes here as well. And again, like I said, this is heroes anybody can get that I would recommend getting as soon as possible. And I'm going to take them all from the connections page. So as far as who to prioritize from this, first one we're going to talk about is Lorena. I mentioned earlier I use Lorena for almost every team in my game. In the game, for me, has Lorena on it because she is just an extremely solid damage dealer. She has some bulk to her, so she's not, you know, a glass cannon, meaning you can use her almost anywhere. She gives herself combat readiness, and she is dark type, which means there's no game mode where her damage is resisted. So basically, she's a jack of all trades, right? And she has a specialty change, which makes her extremely powerful, especially for the PvE content. You know, so you could get Lorena. You see here, I think you beat like chapter 6 in the main story, somewhere around there. And then all you got to do is some dispatch missions, get some Molagoras, and then eliminate Church of Illyrios devotees. There's a lot of those in about the last quarter or so of the normal adventure mode. So she's not too hard to get. Her specialty change does take a while, but she's even good before that. You can just immediately put her onto your team, give her some of that Abyss gear, give her a couple pieces of the crit sets that you've been picking up from Labyrinth and the world map, and she will perform wonderfully for you. Highly recommend you get her as soon as possible and invest into her. Another one that's really good is Silk. So, you know, everybody's selective summon is different, so I'm not going to tell you that you need Silk. But let's say that what you are missing, you know, you've got a Soul Weaver, okay? You've got Lorena, and you've got another damage dealer of some kind, and what you really feel like you could use is some kind of support hero to just sort of make the rest of your gears kind of tick, right, in your team. Silk is that kind of hero, because everything that she does is revolved around, what do we say was the best stat before speed? Silk is revolved around making your team faster and making the enemy team slower. Everything she does manipulates combat readiness and manipulates speed. So she is perfect for, you know, making your damage dealers do more damage per turn and take less damage. She's perfect for neutralizing enemies that otherwise could cause you problems because they just don't get enough turns to do what they want to do to you. So Silk is another really good one. The last one I'm going to mention here, last 3 I'm going to mention here because they're kind of interchangeable, kind of not, but they're all Soul Weavers, which is Aether. Of course, you're going to get Aether no matter what you do. He is a fine healer if you need one. He's also hilarious, so that's always a plus, you know, I mean, we're playing to have fun. Hazel, she is a healer as well, kind of a specialized healer. She does get a specialty change, which is nice, and you do need to use her at least a little bit to get Yuna, but I wouldn't say that I would prioritize investing in Hazel. But she is a Soul Weaver if you need one. Last one we'll talk about is Elson, and he is a Soul Weaver. That's why I'm mentioning all 3 of these. They're Soul Weavers, which means they're healers, which makes them really useful as a frontline unit in almost any PvE content. And also, Soul Weavers tend to be kind of rare. Somehow I get them all the time, but not everyone has that experience. A lot of things that I hear on the forums and the Discord and things is that, you know, people kind of have trouble getting a Soul Weaver early on if you don't get one in selective summons. So Elson is probably the best Soul Weaver in the connections list, and he does a lot of really good things for your team. I would say Aether is fine if you don't feel like farming for Elson and you just want to use somebody right out of the gate. And if you like fire units, if you want to use Hazel's specialty change, if you really want to rush getting Yuna, Hazel is one you can look into as well. She does have a heal, an attack buff, and the unhealable debuff, which can really come in handy. So that's going to be it for this video. These are just some heroes, some gear that you can get no matter what kind of luck you have. That'll help you get through the early and mid game, which is something that I always want to help people with, is their early and mid game, so that they can get to what I would call the fun parts of Epic 7. The best parts of Epic 7 is, you know, kind of right at the end of the mid game, the beginning of the end game, where you're starting to get into PvP and improve your skills there. So these heroes and gear, you don't need luck to get them, and they'll help you get there. Anyway, this has been Victory with an Epic 7 video. Please like, comment, subscribe if you want to see more videos like this one, and have a great day, everybody.